North Korea has been ruled by the totalitarian regime of the Kim family dynasty for the last 7 decades, handing power down from grandfather to father and now son, Kim Jong-un. The Kim regime has maintained its grip on North Korea by imprisoning its enemies and by controlling and censoring the mass media, newspapers, TV, radio, with only a privileged few getting access to the internet. TV shows on state-run media tout the achievements of North Koreans and their leader. Even at the border, anthems praising the Kim regime are blasted into South Korea, as we saw and heard on our recent trip there. But in the last few years, North Korean defectors based in South Korea have been undermining the country's information blackout. Just a few miles from here, nearly 25 million North Koreans are living under total government censorship. Activists have been smuggling in foreign movies, TV shows, ebooks to give North Koreans a view of the world outside their tightly controlled borders. One of those activists is Kang Chol-hwan, a North Korean defector. In 1992, Kang says he bribed a border guard and fled across the border into China, the route most defectors use to escape.
We are people who lived in absence of freedom. We know how precious it is. I want to give all these people their freedom and the opportunity to live as humans. These are my friends, my family, and my fellow North Koreans.
Today, he's the director of a nonprofit called the North Korea Strategy Center based in Seoul, South Korea's capital. Formed in 2007, his group pays Chinese smugglers to send USB drives filled with prohibited outside media into North Korea. He says even though North Koreans lack internet connections, they can watch smuggled movies and TV shows on their computers or on Chinese video players with USB ports like these called Notels.
We send various content, from stories on human rights, general information on South Korea, to images depicting the average American.
Or a fictional version of the average American, TV shows like The Mentalist and Desperate Housewives. Kang says scenes like this one from NCIS
anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
That show police officers reading suspects their rights are especially useful.
It helps them to realize that in the outside world, even the criminals have rights.
If you dare to share a foreign movie with your friends...
There are a handful of groups like Kang's operating under the belief that exposing North Koreans to outside media weakens the regime.
What North Korea really fears is their people becoming aware of their suppression.
Your strategy of sending these USB sticks over there, how do you know that strategy is working?
We regularly monitor the response through those who are able to move across the China-North Korea border more easily. If we find that a television drama that we sent has been banned, we know that it has been impactful.
In fact, government interviews with defectors entering the country reveal that most were exposed to some outside media in recent years. Kang Chol-hwan also knows from personal experience how outside media can dramatically alter one's worldview. As a young man in North Korea, he got a hold of a smuggled radio that picked up Voice of America and other broadcasts from South Korea. He says that was how he learned the truth about the Korean War, that North Korea had instigated it, a fact the regime kept from its citizens.
In North Korea, we're taught that it was the U.S. and South Korea who attacked the North. I never had any doubts about this information before. But after listening to the radio, I learned what the North Korean government had been telling us about the war was not true. This myth allowed the North to hold the South responsible for the war.
What would have happened if you were caught listening to foreign broadcasts?
You would have been branded as an anti-revolutionary. Then you would be sent to an internment camp. But if you were repeatedly caught, you would be executed.
Kim Hwang-kwang knows that risk well. He's also a defector living in South Korea. But in the North, he actually worked for a government task force that went door to door confiscating smuggled outside media.
When
we caught these perpetrators, I felt a sense of protecting our nation's morals and making the nation safer.
He says many people he caught spent months or years in prison camps, which he now regrets.
Once we received a call that 3 university-age kids were watching a movie on a CD. When we got to the house, they didn't open the door for us, so we broke down the door to get inside. These kids were not criminals. They didn't steal or murder anyone. It was done just to prove that they were in possession of a foreign movie. And it was done in such a brutal fashion. When I think about it now, I'm very ashamed.
Over time, Kim began to take a huge risk, keeping and sharing the media he'd confiscated. He also started reading banned books, like All the Shah's Men about the 1953 coup in Iran, that made him question the regime. Then in 2003, Kim was caught by the government for lending movies to a friend. He was sentenced to a year of hard labor.
물론 처음에는 내가 정말 잘못했다.
At first, I thought I had made a mistake. I thought that as a government official who was in charge of protecting North Korea's laws, I had done a poor job. But time on the farm was very strenuous and unrelenting. I began to question why I was suffering so much.
When he was released in 2004, Kim says he decided to defect, taking another risk by bribing a North Korean border guard to let him cross into China. Today, Kim runs North Korean Intellectual Solidarity, another group that traffics outside media into North Korea. Kim takes a different approach by making his own video recordings of South Korean homes and markets to show North Koreans how well other people live. Also a computer science professor, he developed a stealth USB drive that can avoid detection by appearing empty when initially connected to a computer.
그랬는데 북한이 시간이 지나니까 그걸 다 알아버렸어요.
But the North Korean government became aware of this stealth drive and created a program that was able to detect this USB. In retaliation, I created software that would block the program, and it eventually became a game of cat and mouse.
Do you worry that you're putting North Koreans' lives in danger if they get caught with some of these materials?
북에 있었을 때 그 위험한 상황.
All North Koreans know the risk of their actions. Despite the potential punishment they know they will receive, there are many people who actively search for these materials.
Yeonmi Park grew up in North Korea and says watching outside videos changed her perspective of the world. She says as a child, all she learned from watching state-run media was love for the Kim regime and North Korea.
They don't show us if our team loses. We win the Olympics, we win the World Cups, we win everything.
Park says North Korean school children are fed a steady diet of anti-American propaganda and are taught to refer to Americans as bastards.
In math book, it says there are 4 American bastards. You kill 2 of them. Then how many American bastards left to kill? And as a child, I had to say 2 American bastards. And that was my education.
But Park saw a different view of the outside world through DVDs her parents were able to buy on the black market, like Pretty Woman, Snow White, and Titanic. She says watching these movies were more than entertainment.
Give me your hand.
They made her think differently about her life in North Korea.
I never heard my father was telling my dad, I love you. But in the movie, man tells woman, I love you, right? And those things were never allowed for us to express to each other than their leader. So of course, watching this information helped me to understand the outside world a little bit. That I realized there was some humanity out there.
That understanding gave her hope for a better life. After her father was imprisoned by the government for smuggling industrial metals, her family fell into poverty and faced starvation. In 2003, when she was 13, Park's family paid a smuggler to sneak them across the border into China.
I think that was the most horrifying part in my journey, the uncertainty, that you don't know when you will be safe again in your lifetime. So we were just running and hoping how some things might work out.
It took 2 years traveling through China, sometimes on foot, but eventually they made it to South Korea. Today, Park is studying at Columbia University in New York City with access to a world of information.
Every story was propaganda to brainwash us about the Kim dictators.
And she's become a human rights activist, speaking out against the North Korean regime. She also wrote a memoir about her escape.
Now I'm free, and I have to learn all about freedom. What does it mean actually?
Park says although the Hollywood movies she watched as a child didn't fully prepare her for life outside the country, they can be a spark for her fellow North Koreans.
Other lives can be possible on this earth, but they just don't have information right now. They don't know who they are, and they don't know what they are capable of. So we just have to show them what they can be.